Jeffrey. How you doing?
I'm wonderful, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So my first question to you, since you've done so much, who is Jeffery Beckham Jr.? I mean, you just didn't pop up. Where you come from? Let the folks get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a Chicago kid through and through. My parents both grew up on the south side of Chicago, between Auburn Gresham and over off 78th and Blackstone. And, I always tell people like the roots and the core of who I am is really made up of what Chicago is. I'm a hard worker. I believe in, pulling yourself up and dusting yourself off, being resilient. But more than anything else, I'm a son of two parents who are service-minded and service-oriented and people of faith. And so, I'm a child of God who believes that I was put here to help others. I think that whatever skills that I've had, I've tried to figure out how I can use those to impact the world and make it a better place, whether it's been stuff that I've done when I was younger through youth ministry at my church or through the Boy Scouts. And even now at Chicago Scholars, my goal has always been to impact this place and make it better however I can.
Okay. Well, I think you're off to a phenomenal start. You heard my introduction and some of the facts that I gave. Anything that you agree with? I mean, I would say that needs to be adjusted in how I describe the state of education in the United States and Chicago.
Man, you hit it on the head. I worked in two industries in my career. Healthcare, both in the direct service side with Quest and LabCorp, and then on the tech side, and then education. And I say both of those institutions in our country are really like literally piecemeal together with Band-Aids and Scotch tape, man.
Oh, man.
It is exceptionally, we're at a critical point, really thinking about what we need to do to fix both. And we saw those cracks during the pandemic when so many of our young people and parents had to become at-home educators to help their kids, and we just weren't prepared with the type of technology and the type of access to be equitable to kids who come from low-income backgrounds and those that have the most means. And even those with the most means experience learning loss, but it's really the kids who come from low-income families that will be most impacted. We're already seeing 2 to 3 grade level years of learning loss for those young people. And so, yeah, I think you hit it on the head. Not only thinking about the lack of resources or investment in certain resources for young people, but then the increasing cost. Everything costs more. College was not left without that, nor education. I mean, we've seen schools go up 15 to 20% year over year in terms of tuition, room and board, and the total cost of school. And if you're a low-income kid or a first-generation kid who's never navigated those waters before, it makes it really hard for you. And you're trying to tread as best possible to get to school, get to college, get through college, and get into your job. But yeah, man, everything, the cost, the structures, the systems that are being built. I mean, even this year, the FOSFA was delayed about 3 months. It just released Jan 1 because it's federally mandated to do that. But if you're a low-income kid, you needed that whole first 3-4 months prior to getting your financial aid package earlier in the year to prepare. And so it just made it more difficult. And I think we have to work, and part of the work that I do at Chicago Scholars with my amazing team is to work to make college more accessible, more affordable, and the dream of a great career more realistic for the young people we serve.
So as you, excuse me for that, as you navigate the pre and post pandemic, are there some real surprises that you've seen?
I don't think there's anything that's surprising. I think initially the surprise was the persistence and resilience of our young people.
Okay.
Like that first year, man, they were all in. They were still, getting the work done, going to school on time. Our persistence rates in terms of getting them on-time matriculation rates did not drop. We still had 100% on-time matriculation for our kids. What has happened was what I did expect to happen a little earlier. What we're seeing now are the cracks of a lot of the impact of the pandemic. Young people are really facing a lot of mental health challenges on campus, whether it's anxiety or depression or the fact that you've been with your families in homes for 2 years, sometimes longer, and now you're faced with going away and having to leave that comforting environment. And so we're hearing from both our students and our university partners that, the focus on mental health is the right one in the moment.
Okay.
Not surprising, but I think what I was surprised by in that was that it didn't happen sooner. I felt like a lot of kids went
Really?
off and they were still like, it was I think the momentum and the adrenaline of the moment, answering the call. And then they got there, they were like, wait, I haven't been conditioned those last 2 years of high school to be ready for this. And so you're seeing some of that pop up now where, we've seen higher than average drops in our persistence rates from like year 2 to 3 and 3 to 4, meaning more kids are coming home or rethinking college. And maybe that's a myriad of things. We also have the economy to factor into that too, where a lot of parents and folks and guardians have lost jobs and roles over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And so then the cost becomes prohibitive. So I think there's a mix of everything there. And so again, not surprised, but like more surprised that it took this long to get here.
Okay. I mean, because when you say persistent, right, you mean persistent at going to school.
Persisting while in school. So there's like a couple major data points we look at in this college access space. We look at on-time matriculation. So did the kid go to school on time?
Okay.
We look at persistence rates when they get to school year over year. So freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and of course, senior year, we look at graduation rate. And so if you know that the kid gets to school on time, the likelihood of them making it through year one is higher. And if they persist, obviously year 1 to 2 without transferring, coming home, the higher the persistence rate, the higher the graduation rate. We measure in 6 years, over 6 years, that kid's graduating on time.
Wow. So let's switch a little bit.
Yeah.
You're quite a dynamic individual. You're a serial entrepreneur. You've started some pretty exciting businesses. As I was doing my research on you, I could name a few, but I'll let you drop that to the audience. What steered you towards Chicago Scholars? Was this your life passion as a community servant? But you've done some pretty interesting things from a career perspective. What got you there?
Thank you. I often tell people, for me, it's been being pushed out the window to go fly. And that's happened multiple times. The first time when I lost the job working at LabCorp, I got a call one day, come in, bring your laptop, we're downsizing. They didn't tell me that I was being downsized. I just showed up in
that's
a
often
car with my stuff, thinking I'm just coming to work one day to get a new computer.
Okay.
Like, yeah, we're letting the sales team go in Chicago, and you got to we'll drop you off. Somebody will take you home, right?
Wow.
And after that was the first point where I got on the phone with my mentors and my parents, my family. Because I think I'm going to start this thing called Black Box Creative. I've been doing websites and mobile apps on the side, and I think this industry is about to grow, right? 2014, and it grew, it grew rapidly. And then from then again, like, to get to Chicago Scholars, I was working as the National Director of Digital Marketing for a New Teacher Center out in Santa Cruz. I was here in Chicago working remotely. And when, the previous president, those that will not name nameless, took over for President Obama.
Okay.
We cut funding for something called ESSA, or the Every Student That Succeed Act, that replaced No Child Left Behind in 2015. And that was really creating pathways to equity around school funding. So the biggest part and chunk of that affected us at New Teacher Center was Title II, which was teacher training and induction. Somebody thought that if we invest in training better teachers, we get better outcomes. Okay. That was a crazy thought. But the new administration came in, they cut Title II funding. It cut NTC's budget about 50%. And so in terms of, nonprofit losing that amount of revenue, they notified everyone that they were going to be doing some restructuring and downsizing. And they gave us about a 7-month window. I'd never seen anything like this where a nonprofit was that thoughtful about its people to let us know what was coming. They did their hardest to really try to restore and find that funding, but were unable to. And in that 7-month span, I had started a leadership program, was part of the leadership program at the Chicago Urban League in Chicago booth called the Impact Leadership Development Program, where my mentor at the time kind of was working with me about a future plan. I'm actually a mentor in the program now, and I'm working on a leadership action plan with my mentee now. And in that leadership action plan, mine was in 5 years, I want to either start a nonprofit doing youth leadership work or go work at one. And Dr. Towns kind of helped me craft what that vision looked like. I saw the role at Chicago Scholars posted. It was vice president of career and leadership development almost 6 years ago. The funny part about this story and that journey is that I did not think I was qualified the first time I saw the role. So I actually did not apply. I'm like, I hadn't done education in the traditional sense, but I had taught and ran a curriculum and leadership program at the University of Illinois Chicago for the 100 Black Men and in Fifth Third Bank. And that program that I'd run for 3 years required me to understand pedagogy, leadership design, leadership instruction, curriculum design. I'd done all this work. And when I saw the role posted again about 4 months in, about 3 months prior to the decision of who they were going to let go, I decided to apply. Went through the job, got in the first round of interviews. And the way we used to do interviews at Chicago Scholars is really interesting. I'm sitting in a room in a circle of everybody that's in the interview process with me. And we all have 1 minute to answer a question.
1 minute.
1 minute to answer. And everybody got to answer the same question. And then you answer it, and you start. And it's like this pressure cooker entry level interview. And after the first question, I knew I was qualified for the role. I knew I was the man for that role in that season. I got the role, which was VP of Career and Leadership Development. And so I got there again through, thinking I was going to be downsized. And the funny part is I wasn't let go at NTC. They decided to keep me, but they let go of most of my team. Gotcha. And that was, the reality that I faced. But I decided to move on and got the role at Chicago Scholars the same day that my grandmother passed away.
Ooh, sorry to hear that. Yeah.
In the parking lot going to University of Chicago when they offered me the job.
Wow.
And you'll hear that narrative in my story a lot where out of oftentimes tragedy, the next phase of the next thing is birthed in that moment for me.
Isn't that how it normally works, a lot of times?
Yeah, unfortunately. But I've been incredibly happy to be here. I stayed and obviously matriculated to the role of CEO, which was another crazy opportunity for me that I did not expect coming here. I did not expect to be CEO of Chicago Scholars when I left New Teacher Center. I told myself, I'm going to give myself a 2-year break.
Okay.
Wrong. It is not a break.
No.
It is not by any stretch of the imagination. For-profit is somebody that's led in both arenas is much easier. This is more like entrepreneurship than anything else. I mean, it really is like you hunt what you go out and get and gather. Yep. You do it with bare bones budget. It's that old poem, "We the willing, doing the impossible, have done so much for so long with so little that we're now capable of doing anything with next to nothing all the time."
Well, you must be good at seeing solutions. I mean, as I listen to your story, God often picks those folks that say they're not ready, and He puts them in great positions. And so you said you weren't ready, but look at what you've done. Yeah. And so with that, I want to talk a little bit about what I also think I'm hearing is a theme. Are you a believer that you can be more successful if you have a mentor or a group of folks you can throw things off of?
Yeah, man. Between my life board of directors, which are like just trusted friends that I can call up, and mentors, they have helped me time and time again, whether it was when I was a small business owner running a web development shop, Black Box Creative, hitting my head against the wall on how to scale. And I was sitting with these men all the time in the local coffee shop, Trent Espew, Lester McCarroll, Phil Beckham, and Elle Davis, my sister. And they would listen to me. And finally they were like, "We can help you." And they did. They literally sat down. All of them are brilliant business people, entrepreneurs themselves. And they would help me with structure and understand that, these are the things you can do to structure well. And it's funny because they were around the whole time. I think one of the hesitancies we have, whether it's being from Chicago or being from a low-income background, is that we want to put it all on our shoulders. We want to carry it all the weight. And that's just not realistic. No one that has ever been successful at anything did it on their own.
And why do you think that is? Do you think that's because they don't think they have trusted advisors around? Or maybe I could talk a little bit about my history, but you're dealing with kids. What are you saying from that regard?
There's an apprehension to ask for help. There's a little bit of fear there. There's somewhat imposter syndrome creeping up with these young people.
Wow.
It's like, I'm not worthy of this person's time. So I'm scared to ask, or I don't want to bother them. And even when you tell young people, like, I'm here for you, I'm a resource, oftentimes they call when it's like at the DEFCON 5, right? Like the bomb is about to explode and I need help and I'm about to fall off the cliff. And I tell all of my mentees and even the young people I work with, call us earlier, give us more notice. There's typically things that we can do and help you before it's too late. And I've even experienced that. Like I've even done that recently in my own life. It's that whole idea, and I'm trying to be better. One of the things I've personally committed to is asking for help earlier, asking for help on the front end, building teams around me, because I have big ideas and with big visions. Oftentimes there's big provision that needs to be provided from the right people, structure, financing, all the things you need to do to accomplish it. And what I've learned now in my 43 years is that asking sooner and building that on the front end leads to better outcomes and trying to get it when you're about to break or crack or break down or burn out.
Gotcha. So are you a trusting individual? Like, I love that you have big ideas. So do I. And it sounds like you're acting on them. But are you one of those individuals that I have to make sure it's all buttoned up and every I is dotted, T is crossed before I can talk to my mentors about my issue?
I grew up that way. I grew up probably to the self thing. You do these things to yourself, like growing up as an engineer, coder, working in tech, working in for big corporations that use the old waterfall method of project management, right? Like you wrote the project plan, you did all of the dotted the I's, T's crossed, then you built the whole thing, realized it was broken, and then you would iterate and version it to fix it. And that's actually how I approached life when I started, because I was learning that. You can think about like Windows, right? Remember Windows 95, Windows 98, Windows NT, Windows 7, Windows 8. It was the way we used to build things. And then something came about as the rise of the mobile app community and the mobile development came, which was an agile project management method. And in agile, you build the thing on the front end with user input. You have a group of test users that you test hypotheses with. You improve and enhance on the things and bugs that are broken, and you're continuously redeploying. It's why our iPhones get push notifications to them all the time of these updates. I apply that method in life. I apply that method in small business. I apply that method in relationships. Like I'm always thinking about if this is something that I believe and I have a hypothesis that can achieve my goals and outcomes, let's build it. Let's build it with user input, human-centered design, right? Let's bring people, the stakeholders to the table that this is actually going to affect. But then when we build it, let's test it with them and let's iterate and version until we get the best possible product, knowing that it's a continuum. Any business is a going concern. You're going to have to continue to iterate. If you don't iterate, you'll be BlackBerry or Palm Pilot and you'll be gone.
Yeah. That's a perfect analogy. Because BlackBerry was well, I can cuss on my own show. It was the shit. Now it's no longer.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about this. So do you take your mentorship philosophy? Are you seeing kids use it? Do you find, because I would assume Chicago Scholars is consistently trying to chase the money. Maybe you're well-funded. I don't know. I haven't looked at your 990. But my point being this, you are a believer that mentorship works. I am too. But I also believe that you have a lot of people who are different now post-pandemic. Some are a lot more recluse. I do see a lot of mental health issues. But what are you seeing from both the children or the kids and funders?
Yeah, the first couple classes, man, like the previous 2 years, very quiet, very reserved. I think the trust factor was definitely something that was hard for them. There was a lot of loss too, where there was loved ones, jobs, financing, just a lot of loss. And you felt that amongst the young people, but they still pushed and they were pushing, and they're being more vocal now about their needs while they're in school, which has been great. This current crop of class, these students right now, they want it all, man. And they're coming for it. And they're more vocal than probably any class that I've ever seen since I've been here since 2018. Like these young people are I think they see the world and the potential of the world, but also the problems of the world. And they don't want to solve them 5 years from now. They want to be part of the solution now. They want to lend voice to the things that are decided for them on their behalf for their futures. And so
Wow.
it's a group of young people who are decidedly more aggressive about taking the reins of their life and really driving and steering a car, which I'm very encouraged by. I mean, very. And you do, because of the proximity I have with the young people, it's really good to be able to hear what they need. And I think our responsibility is to continue to be open to it and continue to create space for them to feel safe to share their needs.
That's wonderful because I'm far removed. My kids are adults. I was aggressive. I'm a believer that good times create. You've heard it. Good times create weak people. Weak time, or bad times. I forget the analogy, but I wasn't raised with a silver spoon in my mouth, and so I had to hustle. And as I've done well. I won't say my kids might be listening to this, and I don't want them thinking that I consider them to not be as aggressive as I am. I think they are. I do. It is great to hear what you're saying, that kids want it all now. But that could put some pressure on them too, because you can't have everything now. Right. Sometimes things need to be developed.
Yeah.
So what do you, and when I talk about resources from the funders, it's not always money, is it? Are there other things that Chicago Scholars is looking for? Because, I think my time is as valuable as my money because I have wisdom. I have lived experience. And when we're talking about the inner city, it's different. When you're talking about a really high achieving minority kid or inner city kid, sometimes you stand out at your school like a thumb. Yep. Like two thumbs. What are you seeing from that perspective? I'm throwing a lot of questions at you, but from the funder's perspective, and then that impact on resources.
Yeah, I mean, running a nonprofit, obviously funding is critically important. And right now, with the state of things happening in the world, where a lot of our funder communities and brothers and sisters are part of the Jewish community too, we've seen a shift, and I understand why the shift is happening. But it's still like, on top of that, thinking about the cost of inflation that, took our budget. We thought we had a 5% inflation marker in our budget. It was more like 8.5%, 9% year over year. Wow. And so when we talk about things like space and energy, renting spaces for events, or things we're doing for the young people, the things we have to buy and purchase, everything costs more. So dollars matter a lot, but you're right on about it's not just money. We have to recruit 220 mentors every year for each class that we bring in. We bring in 550 to 600 kids every year, and we use a group mentorship model where 3 mentors work as a team for a group of 8 to 10 young people. And they stay with those kids through that senior year of high school. And then there's a 1-to-1 pairing of a mentor to maybe 1 mentor to 2 kids for that first year of college. But it's a big task to bring that on. So yeah, time, talent. We have a lot of mentors and volunteers who provide their talent for us, whether that's helping us with strategy to lead the organization with our board, or our associate board members who are helping not just with events, but they've done stuff with social media strategy, created sub-events to help our kids get ready for interviews and do an interview process, interview days with the young people. And so there's a lot there. It really requires quite a few people. I mean, we've got, 50 staff members, 25 contract part-time counselors, 400 volunteers that help us go every year, 200 plus mentors that I mentioned, another, ancillary 200 corporate partners that are hiring our kids, right? Like we need those work. We help them with internships. We help them with jobs. So all in, and of course, 200 college partners that are the recipients of our young people and really caring for them for a course of 4 years. And so it's a big ecosystem that we've built at Chicago Scholars, not to mention our other nonprofit partners, because sometimes our kids are fit for multiple things. We work with Posse, we work with One Goal and Bottom Line and Academy Group and Braven and Hope Chicago and Year Up and Gear Up and all these programs that are out there that are amazing programs doing a lot of this work in tandem. Because even as we cut across with all those programs I just named, there's 15,000 high school seniors that enter into CPS every year, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We're touching 550. Other programs collectively may touch another 1,500, right? We're looking at 2,000 to 15,000. And we've done our data to know about 5,000 to 7,000 are college ready, right? Ready 2.8, 2.9 or better, ready for school, ready to go. So have 50% of the kids, and we're hitting 2,000. So we have to figure out how we serve more and provide supports for young people. And obviously, not all those young people need the support. Some have families who are well off. Some can pay for it. Some get access points other places. But, I know all in there needs to be and continues to be a need for more of what Chicago Scholars provides for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, I didn't know. Thank you for those statistics. How does someone get involved to become a mentor? I mean, do they have to be?
Our mentor application open today. Timing could not have been more perfect. And it's really a simple application around you, your background, what do you do? There's details there around what the commitment is. We're looking, I always tell people, in total, you parse it out over the course of a year, it's about 50 hours a year total. There's high points like our new scholar orientation where you're there 4 hours. There's a training that's 2 hours. But then you're in 6 workshops with kids. Every other month there's a workshop that's about 2 hours. And then the other time is self-paced on your own, spinning it with your cohort. And you can divide and conquer the lift with 2 other people, the other adults that we'll pair you with. Or if you got 3 from your company and you all want to mentor together, we do that too, where we've had corporate partners come in. The Cubs are a big partner. They mentor together.
That's good to hear.
Clearing Commission, they mentor together. Sterling Bay, like many other these companies that come in and work with us where they'll build mentor teams and they'll work as a corporate engagement opportunity for their staff too.
And I would assume that we're talking the kind of mentorship that means they're career ready versus, whether they can do arithmetic or reading.
That's right. It's literally like, I tell people, our kids often, if you're a baseball fan, I use the term 5-tool player, meaning, you can do it all on the field. Typically what our kids need though is, hey, you could choke up on that bat a little bit more. You might make better contact. And what that looks like in practice is, when you're interviewing, maybe sit up more, articulate more. Like, we can't hear you. Because a lot of our kids, first gen, they're very shy and very quiet. Speak out. People need to know you're amazing. Or coaching around like what to share and how to share. You didn't tell anybody that you're a Girl Scout, 3.8 GPA on the basketball team, and you're helping care for your little brother. Like, that's leadership. And
that is.
Our young people don't often see that, but the mentors, we call them mentor coaches because they really are there to help coach students along that journey. They don't need a lot, but they definitely can hear your story and they'll find a point of emphasis. No matter who you are out there, your story has value to a young person's life who is trying to achieve something that you've already done. I can guarantee it.
And, I'm getting goosebumps off that because, on this program, I get to talk to some change makers. And when I look back, we've seen some pretty devastating shifts in society from the Supreme Court. Now you're dealing with some academically advantageous and aggressive kids who come from low-income families. And sometimes they just can't afford it, right? And so has and I want to get into what's behind you after this question.
Sure.
Is the Supreme Court's decision a helper or a hurter to your kids?
It's definitely going to be a hurter for our kids. We do a big event called the On-Site College Admissions Forum. This year is always like this third Tuesday in October. Happened right after the SCOTUS ruling. This is the first big event. And, when we started to see some of the packages that schools were able to offer, many had to get rid of their race-based diversity scholarships. My alma mater, University of Missouri Columbia, which I love so much, the attorney general there, the minute the SCOTUS ruling went forward, sent a letter to the Mizzou and said, eliminate those now. And so there's kids like me who had a 3-point-plus GPA, 30 ACT, that may not get the opportunity to step foot on a campus that's as great as Mizzou was for me because of the elimination of a way to try to level a playing field that's been unlevel for years. It's interesting to me. I read the ruling and some of the words that they use where they actually use Justice Day O'Connor's previous thoughts on this to say we may come to a point where this is no longer needed because Black folk in the country will catch up. people of color will catch up. Minorities will catch up. Have we caught up? Blacks in America have less than 1% of the wealth of this country. Average median income of a black family is $4,000.
Yes.
The average median income of a white family is $118,000. And in the next 20 years, we know that because of the way things are going, the median income of black families will actually be negative, right? We haven't caught up.
Yeah.
I saw a report that the value of the 40 acres, had every slave been given their 40 acres and been allowed to build and develop that land, realized in real time today would have generated another $118,000 to $120,000 of income for every black person that got the 40 acres and a mule. The gap is right there. And I understand that. And we're not banging down the walls of the doors like Dr. King said, like literally saying reparations is key.
Right.
We were asking for access to college, to education.
Yes.
We don't want to go through the historical perspective where people like my grandfather and many others were denied access to the GI Bill who served this country.
Preach, brother.
We don't want to look at redlining and what housing contracts cause the direct impact to the black family. We wanted college. We created a space where, okay, we can create college opportunities for young people from communities who would never have access to certain schools to have that. We started to democratize access. What we saw in the pandemic when many schools went test optional was that kids from communities like Auburn Gresham and Inglewood got access to school for the first time, schools like U of I, for the first time in years, right? We saw that there's a program called To and Through the University of Chicago that actually looks at this data. They look at where kids go and matriculate to in terms of college. They do these splatter charts. And there were certain zip codes where kids did not step foot on U of I's campus, like Inglewood and Auburn Gresham. But because of text optional access, where scores went away and they looked at the holistic student and their GPA, student got access. Now, what we want to see is that those students persist. It's my hypothesis that you said earlier, Keith, difficult times build stronger people. I believe that those kids will persist.
Okay.
That they won't mess up this opportunity, that they'll do everything while they're there, as long as the funding, which thankfully their grandfathered in prior to the SCOTUS ruling, will still get access to those funds. But moving forward, what does that mean for young people? And some schools are being thoughtful. Washington University in St. Louis has really crafted a way to be able to provide students around the ideals of leaders of color from their campus and alumni community and city. And you write an essay because race can still be talked about in the essays of the students and how it's impacted their life.
Gotcha.
But you can get access to funds that way. But WashU had to do that because they were sued 10 years ago and had to eliminate race-based admissions from their profile.
I remember that. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I went on my
no,
there, but you hit the nerve there. So
well,
our
I'm glad because people don't know, a lot of people don't know this, but I served on the school board in the city of Evanston. I was president for 2 years, served for 4, and I'm a big proponent of education, particularly for those folks that don't have, because it still represents a gateway to a higher degree of earning. And I love when folks go and investigate, and this is the commercial I'm going to give on Chicago Scholars. Go look at their website, go get involved. Jeffrey just said they need 200 scholars, 200 mentors. Mentorship matters, money matters. And so when I look at your website, you guys talked about how the kids coming back and they're earning more than their parents. That is true of me. I hope it's true of my kids. It hasn't happened just yet, but I hope it's true for all the kids going forward. That said, because we can both stand on this box for a minute, let's switch the subjects. What folks don't realize is that when I first heard about you, I was sitting with a good friend and they said, "You see that painting on the wall? I know the artist." And I said, "Well, first, let me see if I like it." I looked and I said, "Yeah, I like that piece of artwork." And then and she said, "I should introduce you to him." And S.J. Gardner, where if you're listening, I'll give you a nod. This is a great introduction. And so when I did my research on you, you're self-taught. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because earlier I said you see issues and you create pathways for yourself. So talk a little bit about your artwork, because I see it behind you that looks like some good stuff in the making.
Yeah, man. So Let me back up. I got it. As you said it triggered me a little bit. Self-taught in terms of painting, yes. Self-taught as an artist, no. My dad was my greatest teacher.
Okay.
He was a phenomenal artist, and he in his youth too as well. And he kept a lot of his drawings. And so when I was a kid, I would sit and emulate his artwork. I would try to draw, and he always drew. He had these books around Black history that he had from probably Lim Loom in the 70s.
Okay.
And he would sketch from the books. I won't tell him because I think they were library books that he never returned. But I would practice those drawings, and then I would read about the figures as a kid. And, I think
they say the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, right?
It doesn't, man. It doesn't. And he was a better sketch artist than I was, but I picked up the trait. And then in like all things, man, I got to high school, was, in love with it, but, was told by numerous people, artists don't make any money. So you're good at math, you're good at science, go be an engineer. Went away to school, stopped drawing for years, and did not pick it up again until 2018, when I was actually had the opportunity to interview to be state rep here in the 26th district in Illinois.
Okay.
And I had a good friend of mine who was really politically connected. He worked on campaigns for Kim Foxx and worked with the mayor. Brother was amazing. And we had a conversation one night about me getting this role and how I was going to manage stress. And he said, what's your plan? I said, well, basketball. Word for word. He's like, bro, you too old to hoop. You need to sit down. And he was right. I had torn my Achilles and my knees and all kind of stuff up. And he said, what else? And I said, well, he said, because you're going to have to practice rest. You're going to have to practice peace. The higher you go up in this world, you have to practice those things. And so I wanted to get back into drawing and art. And he said, you should do that. Crazy part of the story is that he passed away the next day, man. I think right before his 41st or 42nd birthday. Brian Sleet was the brother's name. And it was an outpouring of support from Chicago for his family, for the love that he exhibited. But it unlocked that in me. I went home when I got word of his passing. I bought canvases and stuff a year prior because art was something that I wanted to get back into. I had made the investment, but had not made the effort to unlock the investment I made. Okay. And at that point I did. The first piece was really bad. It was really bad. And then I started and kept with it for a year. And then I posted a piece almost a year to the date of his passing where people online thought I bought it. Okay. Like, did you buy this? And I said, no, it went viral. And I looked up, and into that next year, 19, I was posting, dropping stuff, but it was really the piece that I did called "The Bridges Ruby Cross." It was my take on.
So let me make sure let me make sure I can keep up. So you painted something, and then you just took a picture of it and posted it online.
Yeah.
To see if people liked it or to sell it.
Just to put it online. I wasn't selling art yet.
Okay.
I didn't sell anything in 18. I didn't sell anything almost through night. I didn't sell anything to the end of 2019. Right before the pandemic.
So you were just posting things?
Just posting.
Okay.
Just posting. And then the pandemic hit, and I really leaned in to painting and artwork. And, my mom had gotten word right in that year, 2020, that she had to have a big surgery. So I'm at Mayo Clinic with my mom with a 14-hour surgery, 3 surgical teams. Ooh. This is the height of this. You couldn't go into the hospital. You couldn't go in.
That's right.
And I had done this background that I thought was like a throwaway. It's a small 16 by 20 piece. And when I tell you the piece I posted, I said, well, I'm not throwing it away. Maybe if I add this image, and it was the little girl, Ruby Bridges. And I said, I hate the Norman Rockwell interpretation. She's got, N word next to her. I put Queen. Yeah. And I posted that. I woke up the next morning. My mom was well, in recovery. And the piece had 24,000 likes, the picture. And people from all over were asking, could they buy it? I figured out really quickly, because I'm a business person too, how to do prints. Started doing prints of that piece. Now all in, man, in the 3 years that I've been selling artwork for as an artist, I've sold 3,000 pieces of artwork, both originals and prints. That piece in particular has been purchased by somebody at the Met. It's been on display for Brown University. It's been in Chicago PD. It's in a upcoming movie that Tyler Perry is producing called Black, White, and Blue. It has been on a HBO Max show with Issa Rae. Art has literally gotten me Like I dreamt about being an athlete as a kid, and I threw out the first pitch as a Cub at the Cubs game because of my artwork and my work at Chicago Scholars. I got to go to the NBA All-Star game and sit courtside because of Chicago Scholars. I got to deliver the first pitch or the game ball at a Bulls game because of art in Chicago Scholars. I got a shoe deal because of art in Chicago Scholars. The things that I align my purpose to, I chase purpose and not money, have gotten me all the things, a lot of the things that I dreamt about as a kid. And it's not just the things, but the opportunity to learn, to grow, to meet amazing people, man, from the LeBrons of the world, but also like, you know, the local leaders in the city who know me by name and respect the work that I do. I got to paint Don and Liz Thompson, who I admire. Don, the former CEO of McDonald's. Liz, his amazing partner and wife who runs the Cleveland Avenue Foundation of Education. Like one of the greatest honors for me was being able to put them on canvas this year at the Urban League Gala to immortalize them. Mark Morial, same thing. You know, there are so many folks that I've gotten to build relationships with because of a paintbrush and the ability.
And this all started back in 2018.
All started back in 2018.
Wow, what a remarkable story. What a remarkable story. So I just have two more questions, and I thank you for allowing me to have this time. So what's your approach? Because you're a busy person, and you're a great entrepreneur. And, of course, you seem very much blessed by God. So how do you approach you creating new pieces? What's your inspiration?
Yeah, lately, so it's funny. That's a good question. I really locked in now. I first listened to my heart. When I got into the point where I was starting to paint because people wanted me to do a particular thing, those might have sold, but they didn't feel what I wanted my work to feel. Like I want my work to evoke feeling, and I wanted to express like what I'm feeling in the moment. So this Malcolm X piece is one of the more recent pieces. And I was listening to Ballad of the Bullet recently, thinking about where we are as a country and the juxtaposition of his work and his words. And I sketched that as a kid. I got a version of that I did when I was 16 that I couldn't really realize how to reimagine. Then I got it, right? And so I think about what I'm feeling in the moment, what I'm seeing in the world, and what I can do, what story can I tell, or what, if it's an abstract, what emotion can I evoke to bring some healing to that, or to bring awareness to it. Because sometimes it's not my point to heal. Sometimes it's my point to open the eyes of folks who may not be able to see if it's not for a piece of art.
Well said, because I tell you, sometimes the journey to wellness is what's needed most.
Yeah.
And with that, I want to just say thank you, Jeffery Beckham Jr., for being on The Next Big Thing. Last question. How do people get pieces of your artwork or Chicago Scholars? This is your time to throw a commercial out there because I want to be able to invoke change.
Thank you, man. You can follow Chicago Scholars on all platforms. ChicagoScholars.org is our website. At Chicago Scholars is Instagram. We're on LinkedIn as well and Facebook. And then I'm Jeff Beckham, at Jeff Beckham on Instagram. Art by Jeff Beckham on my website, artbyjeffbeckham.com. And you can find me. I'm pretty easy to locate out there. And yeah, I mean, just show love. I think more than anything else, like you don't have to just let me know you're here, you're seeing what we're doing. And I want to thank you too, man, because I think in the same way I use art to tell stories that elevate stories and create awareness, what you're doing here in this platform is so important in a time. People are so less reliant on traditional media. And we're looking for truth. We're looking for good stories. And so like local media, self-created is something that I think is the next wave. And you're right in the front of it. So thank you for creating space for me.
I appreciate that because that is truly my passion. When I started this, it was to really tell the stories that give people hope and allow them to see that someone else is doing that right. And I can tell you right now that when I look behind you and I see the inspiration of art, I never thought that I was an artist, but you've inspired me to try to doodle something. So with that, I just want to say, Jeffery Beckham Jr., thank you so much for being on the show. Thanks for listening to The Next Big Thing. I'm your host, Keith D. Terry. If you've enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support this podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and a review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on my YouTube channel at Keith D. Terry. If you want to recommend a guest, please email me at info@terryperformancegroup.com. This has been produced by your host and